G'day folks, it's Rob here and welcome to our little backyard farm. I'm down behind the aquaponics today because I'm building a reservoir to turn a root pouch into a little self-watering garden. And into that root pouch I'll be planting out some black turmeric or Curcuma caesia, but we'll talk more about that later. So if you want to come on down, we'll get cracking and start the build. So we're just down here behind the aquaponics, as I said, underneath the mango tree, which will give this position a lot of shade, and in front of our little native beehive. We've actually got a few other tropicals down here. That black container has some dormant ginger. There's some ginger and papaya and turmeric and a coffee tree down there. So where this turmeric will be growing is semi-shaded through the day. It will get the morning sun up until about 12 midday. The reason I've chosen this location under the mango tree is because turmeric is a understory tropical plant, so it does like a little bit of shelter. I found here. Out here in Ipswich we can have some pretty blistering hot summers. So if you want to learn more about planting turmeric, there'll be a link at the end of the clip. So now onto the build itself. What we have here is the bottom of a 200 litre or 50 gallon drum. I've cut it off round about maybe just under 20 centimetres or just under 8 inches and drilled a little bit of a hole that will act as a drainage port for any excess water in here. Over the back, what I've done is I've drilled a couple of holes and run a zip tie through, and they've gone through a hole that I've drilled in the fill tube just to keep this in place so no little fingers will come along and pull it out. So it's very hard to push back down once it's all filled. Now on the front of the fill pipe itself, I've actually cut a little bit of an angle off, or a bit of a bevel. That'll just allow the water, once it's sitting on the bottom of the drum, just to empty out into the reservoir freely. By the way, I'm using a 32mm or 1.25" rural irrigation pipe. You can use pretty much anything that's food grade to deliver the water down into the reservoir itself. Now that's pretty much all it. Just quickly, this is semi-level. I've deliberately made it a little bit higher at the back and a little bit lower at the front, just to make sure that we do have good drainage through here. As for the reservoir down the bottom, I like to use this slotted pipe because it has a nice void that will hold a lot of water in there, compared to, say, if I just put a whole heap of these rocks around the outside, and there's not a lot of void space in between these rocks. So I like to add this stuff here. It's fairly cheap if you buy it by the roll when you use a lot of it like we do, but you can buy smaller sections as well. It'll be in the drainage area of your landscaping supplier. I have cut a little bit of a section out of the drainage pipe here, just so it fits around the fill tube a little bit better. Next, over the top of this, I'll be placing some weed barrier. It's a weed mat that we use in our other wicking beds. The reason I'm using this here is because I'm also using rocks in this build here, and I don't want these rocks going down into the sand layer. So I'm just going to pop this in here, and then I can empty the sand into the center. Now we've had a bit of rain here, so this sand is pretty moistened. So just pop that in. And that brings us pretty much, just under the height of the pipe work in there. So I might add just a little bit more. So this sand layer is now sitting about an inch higher than the pipework itself. So now I'm just going to add some rock in between the edge of the tray to where the liner is that is holding the sand in the center. What that's going to do is bring the layer up so the pouch will sit nice and flush on top of it. So now the rock's all in there. I'm just going to increase the height of this sand in the center. So there we go. The sand's pretty much all up at the same level as the rock here. So the root pouch will sit nice and flush on that, nice and flat. Now, just to let you know, one of the reasons why I decided to go with this idea is with the other little tray, self-watering tray I built for the root pouch, when I filled up the tube at the back here, the water was forcing the sand to percolate out over the sides. So this rock will stop that problem. Not only that, I didn't include a drainage hole on the front of the other one, so I thought having rock here will just help stop any sand from washing out. There is a little bit of sand there, but that's just from my hands. Now what we've got to do is just trim off this, just to make it look a little bit neater. I'm not cutting it right back to the sand layer, so I'd like some of it to fold in. Geotextile may be a little bit better. You won't get any frayed ends with the geotextile, but this is just what I have on hand. I like to recycle things. So there we go. Now we can just fold this material in like so before we put the pouch on top. we should be right to go. As I mentioned before, I'm using a 95 litre or 25 gallon root pouch here, and that should just sit nicely there. And I will be mixing up the potting mix or the soil mix inside the pouch itself. So I'm filling this up roughly just under halfway. I think that should be about enough. The first additive I'm putting in is some perlite, probably about 4 to 5 litres or roughly a gallon. Now do be careful when you're working with perlite, especially in enclosed areas like greenhouses and hothouses. The dust it releases can be rather bad for your lungs if you're breathing it in all the time. I'm out here in the open. From the position I'm standing in, the wind's going to take the dust away, so I'm not too concerned about it myself. On top of that, I'm adding about the same again of the compost, the commercial compost, then my own compost, and the slow release pellets and rock minerals. Top it off with some more potting mix. And to mix it all together, I'm just going to be using my compost screw. It does a great job of just screwing down and bringing the bottom layers up to the top. I use it in our compost cages all the time now. Just with the cloth bags though, do be careful you don't screw too far, because it will go through the base of the pouch itself. So there we go. I think that's mixed it nicely. Now I'm just going to give it a couple of bounces just to help things settle down in there. And we'll fill it up with some more potting mix. So there we go, we're pretty much all done, I think. So as I said at the opening, we're planting out black turmeric. It's different to the normal orange Cucurbita longa that we grow here. This one here is not quite black, but it has a very, very purple colour to the root when it's grown in the right conditions. You can see I've actually cut this bit off for a bit of a sample shot when I first got it, and it's healed over white, but I can guarantee you this is the real deal. One way you can tell that this is the Cucurbita is the leaves have a black stripe down the centre, so it'll be very easy to tell as soon as we get the first leaves, of which we should be seeing very soon because there is a little bit of a shoot there. Now, this is also known as Kali Hardy in Hindi, and it is said to be one of the most medicinal, if not the most medicinal of the turmerics out there. Not a great culinary one, very bitter apparently, so we won't be using a lot in cooking, but we may find ourselves using it in tea and sharing it around with Kwok Hwai, who sent it to us originally. Thank you very much, mate. By the way, there are links to Kwok's Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram in the description down below. So definitely a bit of a prized plant to grow, and that's why I'm so thankful that it was sent to me. Planting the turmeric itself is very easy. I've actually already posted a clip, if you want to check it out, just up there, giving you some hints and tips on how to grow it in cooler climates, because being a tropical plant, you just can't grow it anywhere, and also a few pointers for growing it in containers. So without any further nattering on, I'll bring the camera down and show you how easy it is. So this container here is about 50 centimetres or 20 inches in diameter. Here in our climate, I'd probably plant no more than 2 sections of turmeric in here, of the orange longa, mainly because they grow rather long. I've had them grow over 30 centimetres in length, and they definitely crowd out this little container. In a cooler area, you could probably get away with maybe 3 to 4 plants, basically because the roots won't grow that large being a cooler climate. Now, this is the only piece of the black turmeric I have, so it gets this whole pouch to itself. Planting it out's pretty easy. I'm just going to probably dig a hole, pop that little shoot roughly around about an inch, inch and a half below the surface of the soil, and then just cover it back up. And it's pretty much all as easy as that. So normally when I'd plant out a turmeric like this, I'd give it a water, but this potting mix is rather damp. We've just had round about 100 mil or 4 inches of rain over the past week, so I'm not going to bother watering it today. But what I will do is I will fill up the reservoir just down the side there. So filling up is very easy. Just pop the hose in there and add the water until you start to see it come out the overflow port at the front. And that's pretty much all it. We know the reservoir is full. So now what will happen is the water will wick up through that sand into the base of the pouch, and then slowly up through the organic rich potting mix until it finds the roots of the plants. And of course the roots of the plants are going to grow down and find the moist layer, and you pretty much will end up with a very happy plant that always has water available to it. as long as you remember to top up the reservoir, that is. Now, over the top of that, I just like to put a tin can just to stop any mosquitoes or snails or anything like that going down into the reservoir itself. As for the routine of filling up the reservoir, I don't think I'll be filling it up that often until it puts on a little bit of growth. I'd say by the height of summer, if it's filling out nicely, I'll have to fill up the reservoir every 5 to 7 days. I've got a wicking barrel next to me here that's just got some turmeric shooting in it at the moment. When that's in full growth in the height of summer and it's just packed out with plants, I generally have to fill it up with water every 4 to 5 days. Because this little pouch garden isn't planted out as densely, I'd say I'll probably only have to fill up the reservoir every 5 to 7 days through summer here. So this clip has hopefully given you folks that like to grow in these fabric root pouches a few ideas on how you can sort of semi-automate the irrigation process. I've got other clips on root pouches and wicking beds if you want to check them out as well. Also too, for those folks who want a bit of an update on the black turmeric, I will be mentioning it in walk around updates, and in 8 to 10 months time I'll be posting a harvest clip of sorts. So hit that little subscribe button if you want to come along and check that out, and any of the other clips we post. Speaking of clips, we do have the how to grow turmeric clip and also the last clip on the monster turmeric harvest if you want to see how they went. I do hope you're all well and happy and that your own gardens are booming, and I will catch you all next clip. Cheers folks, have a top one.